to be my referee when the CFO is not my friend, because the CFO is generally carries just a little bit more weight than the CMO at the table. So some of this is how do we keep the folks that we're working with in marketing, whether we're in-house or outsourced partners, how do we keep them happy? How do we keep them promoted? How do we keep their jobs safe? And how do we keep first the CMO, but secondarily the CEO and CFO and VP of sales where appropriate? How do we keep all of those other key constituencies happy as well? So at a high level, aligning things with goals is important.
For those of you who are raising your hands, I'm noticing like the little raised hand is flashing. There's also a little chat bubble. If you have a question, feel free to chat it, since raising your hand doesn't really tell either of us what exactly the issue is. That way we can better troubleshoot if necessary. Thanks.
And again, thank you all for joining us on this inaugural version of our IBM technology here.
Yes. Okay. So right now, and Bill and I are also sharing a laptop, so this is making things even more interesting. So our first question is we're going to conduct a real quick poll question. Our first one is, are you currently investing in PR? The potential answers are yes, we do it in-house, yes, we use an agency, yes, we are an agency, and no. We'll give you, about like 30 to 60 seconds to go ahead and respond.
Okay, we need some more votes because most people were at no. Okay, here comes some yeses. That's good. That's good. All right. Any more? Okay. I think we've already put some of you to sleep. So we're about to close it down at, we just have 7 votes so far. That's a small percentage of the people on the call, but we'll run with it.
Yep.
It's a mixture. Okay. So no agencies on the phone, although agencies are welcome. I'd love to have some more agencies on the phone because they can either agree with or dispute some of the things we're going to talk about. But a number of people are already investing in PR. I think that's a good thing. One of the things that we often say, we focus primarily on our end on search and social as a team here at Apogee, but search is not typically your best ROI from a marketing perspective. Your best ROI is typically going to come from friends, family, current customers, in other words, your house list. And your second best source of marketing is going to come from well-done public relations when somebody else is vouching for you. Unfortunately, most public relations is not well done, but well-done PR is even better than search, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, and if you'll notice, I put up another poll question. How much of your marketing budget is dedicated to PR? And, a few of you have voted, so we'll go ahead and we'll shut that one down too. But it looks like most of you are at 0 to 20%, which I think is probably fairly typical. So, okay, now on with the webinar.
One more thing I want to toss out there that is sort of a meta shift we're seeing on the web is that over much of the last decade, and in fact since the dawn of the web in the mid-90s, most efforts have been devoted toward your core web property, your core website itself, and we are starting to see some significant shifts toward thinking about what are the other properties out there, the content that you own, but also the content that you influence. And that could be blog postings, it could be your partners, it could be divisions, it could be Google Places, now part of Google Plus. But figuring out what other websites are out there and managing basically an ecosystem of web properties, some of which you have 100% control of and some of which you have 10% control or influence of. And the folks that are really doing the best job out there are not just focused on that one battleship website. They're focused on the whole flotilla from the small destroyers and the support craft as well as the big ones. One thing I want to point out here on the chart, just interesting stat, a lot of the value in display ads is actually coming from the impressions. People rarely click on display ads. We are seeing a lot of cases where display ads surveyed through statistically significant approaches where it does build brand and it ultimately leads to search behavior. So that's just an example of there's not going to be a click. There's not going to be a tracked click to a website, but it is influencing your ecosystem. A couple things I want to dive into on B2B here, just because it is a little bit different. We're dealing with a longer sales funnel. We're dealing with an audience of multiple people. Because it is a higher dollar purchase, because it is a longer cycle, because there are more folks, brand and trust becomes more important. And all the research out there indicates that search and PR actually become, in many respects, even more important in B2B than in B2C, because B2C can be an impulse buy. In B2B, PR and search integrate at every level of that buyer's funnel as it goes down. And so it becomes even more important to think through what's going on there. One other thing that I think is great about the internet is I think for a long time a lot of PR firms and a lot of PR professionals forgot that the P in PR stands for public, not press, and a lot of folks focused on media relations only, or going to Gartner and Forrester and back in the day the Yankee Group and Hurwitz and all those folks, and focused on the industry analysts, and all those are important. But what we've really seen with the advent of the internet and bloggers and social media and short form releases and internet distribution services and everything going on in the broader online marketing world is the public is squarely back in the town square. And the folks that are nailing it in PR and really doubling or trebling or quadrupling their ROI are the ones who are truly doing public relations. And not only are they talking to the classic media, but they have a direct strategy where they're going directly to the influencers and the folks that the influencers talk to, and training the influencers how better to communicate that message. A couple things: if we're going to win in anything, we need to know what's our story, but we need to know who are we telling it to and why do they care. And in B2B, we have a challenge because we have multiple constituencies we're talking to. Typically, they're multiple decision makers. The value of leads varies dramatically. It can be $10 all the way up to $10,000 in terms of the value of a lead in business to business. Many times it's relationship driven, and oftentimes we will not see a purchase occur until a level of trust has been built up. If I'm buying an item out of a shopping cart or a T-shirt or something like that, it's not a very high-risk purchase. In B2B and in some B2C cycles, where life, limb, or lots of dollars are at stake, it's very important to build that trust. And PR does that. PR builds trust better than many, many other things. A lot of success in general is a combination of what I would say credibility and findability. And historically, PR outfits did a fairly good job of credibility if you get the win, and findability was something they always struggled with. Okay, we're going to pause here and do a quick poll.
Yes, we are. And here now. Let me find this platform puts the poll questions in really odd places, so you never really quite know where in the world it's going to show up. There we go. That's the question I wanted. Okay. Question is, how do you make sure your PR messages reach the correct audience? Do you use traditional methods such as PR Week, industry publications and websites, PR.com? Do you optimize them for search? Do you use social media to promote your press releases? Do you use paid media? Do you conduct blogger outreach? That's been shown to be a very effective method of public relations. So we'll give you all about 30 to 60 seconds to respond, and then we will close the poll.
No, we won't give them 60 seconds.
Okay.
Aubrey's too generous. This is your time. We're going to be respectful of your time as much as possible.
I like to say 30 or 60 seconds, just in case somebody was like, oh, I need to answer this, because I know whenever I'm on webinars, sometimes they'll pop up, and then I'm like, oh, I need to answer this. All right, so we will go ahead and shut it down.
Okay.
And it looks like about half of you use traditional methods and half of you use social media.
Yeah, these are not statistically significant answers. What we're seeing here is nothing on blogger outreach and nothing in SEO. So that's good that we're on this call, because we're going to talk about that a little bit. One of the other things to keep in mind is there's a gap out there between PR firms and ad agencies. PR firms understand the value of earned media, but they turn their nose up at paid media. They say, well, gee, paid media is only for folks who weren't good enough to get earned media. On the other hand, ad agencies understand paid media, but it's primarily to promote their little artists who, are scurrying around in the warrens of an ad agency diligently trying to win an Addy and viewing you, the client, as the patron that exists to fund their art. First the creation of the art, and then the promotion of their art. So they understand paid media, but they really only understand it into their art. And the irony is there's sort of a between the cracks opportunity here, which is immense online. And coming out of the search space, we sort of fell into it because every day we're staring at Google or Bing, and the right-hand side is paid media and the left-hand side is earned media, and they work better in conjunction. So one of the things to keep in mind is if you get that earned media win, you get a good article in your local paper, you get a good write-up in your trade publication, consider using paid media to have a secondary campaign on Google and Bing promoting it. You can even do SEO to it and build links to that article. We had a client, it's a rapidly growing red herring, 100 companies to watch. They have a $500 million revenue backlog. They're still pre-IPO, growing like a weed. They got a dream article on CFO.com. It was the lazy journalist who took the press release and just bylined it, put his own name on it, and pretended he wrote it, which from a PR perspective we love because, they ran with our content. And it was a phenomenal article. It positioned our client in sort of the magic quadrant, didn't talk about competitors. It was a very positive article. Well, for 2 years, that article was a secondary campaign on Google AdWords. The primary campaign was going to our clients' landing pages and lead forms, but we ran a secondary campaign driving people into CFO.com. And 2 years after the article first hit, the client's still getting phone calls saying, I just read about you on CFO.com. How credible do you think that is to a sales force? Someone's gone and read it, and they're reading the power of CFO.com. And these days, now that people blog for Forbes, they blog for Inc., the definition of what a journalist is a little different than it used to be several years from now. So it's not as hard to get things that sit on Forbes.com or BusinessWeek.com as it might have been a decade ago. We've created the most read blog post on InformationWeek.com ever in history for a client. And we did it by doing lots and lots of paid media into that. And the wonderful thing about that is that InformationWeek.com is happy about it because now they can charge more on their rate card. They got more traffic. The journalist, we'll put journalist in air quotes here, the journalist is happy because people are reading what they wrote, and the client is happy, and the PR firm is happy because, their initial small win, which would almost have been an afterthought 60 days later, turned evergreen. So if someone's spending $2,000, $3,000 a month or $40,000 a month on a Porter Novelli or Edelman, why wouldn't you spend $10,000 or $15,000 a month or some percentage of what you spent getting the win, keeping the win evergreen for a lot longer so you don't have the usual cycle of a quick win followed by a quick flag. One of the things that sometimes works too is like CFO.com actually allows you to put things on their web pages that are white papers, and some other magazines have this as well. You can actually do paid search, paid media, banner ads, retargeting, remarketing, wherever you want, to the same content you might be promoting on your main web pages, but since it's here, it has more credibility. We have the findability with the paid media guaranteed, and we've got the credibility because your win is hosted on someone else's web page. And in this case, it's actually a pay-per-lead white paper, but it works. and has a huge conversion rate. And we're topping it off by spending paid media into the white paper. Rankings are important, very, very important. And we're going to talk a little bit about SEO, not a great deal, but we're going to talk about integrating public relations and SEO. What I do want to highlight here is the click-through rate and the traffic stats are hugely different from the first couple positions to when you get further down the stack. Roughly 37% of the total traffic is going to come from the first 3 listings. And that's in a large form factor screen. This gets even more concentrated as you move to tablets and smaller screen mobile devices. So when we talk about findability, getting content found and ranking is a huge piece of properly done PR. And PR can help. Well done PR is a strong SEO strategy. The challenge is most PR professionals, since Business Wire and PR Newswire tell them they're doing everything for SEO, don't really quite know how to take it to that next level and get things done. PR, obviously can't control website technology, the age of the website. Some ad agencies swept through there and built a Google invisible flash site, in order to win their addies. A PR firm can't control that. But the PR folks a lot of times are involved in the content creation and thinking through the message maps and the persona development. And so, they can influence the correct website content in a way that's search engine friendly. Keywords on page, making sure that social media content gets distributed with links coming back. And clearly, if they're getting wins in the online versions of traditional publishers, that can be hugely important for SEO if there's a link back. And let's just briefly in the blue box, roughly speaking, ever since the advent of Google, in ranking for SEO, about 20% of your ranking on a competitive key phrase is going to be from what we call on-page SEO, factors related to your website. Roughly 80% of your ranking is going to be off-page SEO, links coming back to you from other sites. And that's where blogger engagement and PR can make a huge impact. So let's kind of start at the fundamental thing in terms of thinking through your public relations strategy in a way that's going to benefit SEO. It really comes down to at the start and the finish to keywords. What are you trying to rank for, and then how do you weave that into your content creation strategy? A couple of years ago, we did some significant training for both PBS and NPR, and they're large publishers of content, and a lot of their content ranks really well on the web. And a good piece of that is because their journalists have now been trained in how to write, and how to write in a way that's not just user-friendly, but is search engine-friendly. And more journalists are going through that training, or major publishers actually have release editors and copy editors who are specifically geared towards search engine optimizing the content that is created by the writers. Very different types of titles and headlines go on to articles that are trying to rank in Huffington Post than would go into the title for an article that's in a magazine. There's been a huge trend away from action titles and action copy into titles that have keywords and key phrases infused in them to be search engine friendly. A lot of journalists have gone through that training. A lot of copy editors, more importantly, have gone through that training. Very, very few PR folks, unfortunately, have really gone through the understanding of how to do keyword research and how to infuse the press releases they're putting out there online and over wires, how to infuse it with the stuff that really helps drive performance on Google. For example, what are your customers searching on? And here's a tough balance between brand and traffic. We had a client that got purchased by Logitech for about $500 million, and the industry analyst category was video conferencing spelled as one word. But ordinary Joes, in other words, the customers who wrote them checks, spelled it video space conferencing, 2 words. And the key thing to determine is who are they trying to influence. If they're trying to rank on Google for where the big traffic is, they needed to insert video space conferencing in their titles of their press releases and in the content and in the of the press release itself and in a bunch of other places where they were publishing web content. And so there's a tough challenge here because the elite of the industry might laugh and say, well, gee, they don't even know how to spell the way we describe it in the industry. So there's a tough discussion here, but figuring that out on the front end is critical. If you don't already have the keyword list that the firm's working on, as a PR firm, try to create one. Start with the paid search data. In fact, one of the things we often talk about is that if you're looking at an SEO vendor and they haven't asked you for your paid search data, keep moving. Stop interviewing that SEO firm and keep interviewing one until someone asks for the paid search data. Because if you get the wrong keywords, your SEO efforts are going to be a waste of money. If you've got two SEOs next to each other and they're equally good, the one who wins is the one who's working the right keywords. And the right keywords, going back to that earlier slide of what are your goals, the keywords that move the needle toward your goals. Paid search data is one of the best ways of doing keyword research. Figuring out what's working currently in Google or any other analytics system. And there are a bunch of free tools and some paid tools that also let you go deeper and come up with a keyword list. Along the lines of having a good customer experience and not faking people out or having folks get unhappy with what they find if you actually rank for something. Use terms that actually describe something you offer. So don't be saying you've got stuff for women if you have stuff for men, or that's kind of an obvious example. But have the keywords be aligned to something you either offer or something that you supplant or think you do better. Let's talk a little bit about how social media and influencers have changed PR. 2003, LinkedIn was launched. 2004, Facebook. 2005, YouTube. 2006, Twitter. 2011 was the year of Pinterest. There was kind of a hiatus of a couple of years there where a lot of stuff shifted toward mobile and tablets. But there's going to be more in the future. All these things have moved the needle of what we need to influence beyond traditional media into another tranche of the pyramid, the social influencers. And that would be, one of the easiest ways in B2B, and there's some paid tools that work well for this, but it's simply to go to Technorati. And once you have your keyword list, put your keywords in the search engine for Technorati, you'll quickly know the 300 bloggers that you want to start to get to know and build a relationship with. And these folks, in some respects, are easier to build a relationship with than journalists. In other respects, they're harder because there are more of them. Also keep in mind that most media members now, and this is where a lot of PR firms kind of drop the ball, most media firms are also out there on social media, and they're much more approachable through social media. They have Twitter handles. One of the guys I went to college with is a fellow named Dana Milbank. He's a big wig over at the Washington Post. We correspond on Facebook. He talks about his articles on Facebook. It's accessible. He's not even a public figure. It's just him as Dana Milbank. A lot of journalists are out there and are much more approachable that way, but there's that broader group of social influencers, and they need to be reached out to as well. It's sort of a custom list of online influencers. And then the other thing that is important is, since in many respects you're taking away the filter of the media and you're trying to get social influencers and also brand ambassadors, journalists are notoriously tricky to train and to parrot what you wanted them to say. Hence the whole PR description of spin and spinmeisters and that. There's really not a lot of spin that's necessary if you already have people who are excited about what you do. If you have some brand ambassadors or folks that have already given positive testimonials. And if they're out there and they have a number of Twitter followers that are active on Facebook, pretty much all you need to do is arm them with tools. Arm them with the tools to leverage and magnify and intensify your message, and they will do that. Consider rich media. not enough of the PR professionals out there, in our opinion, are moving beyond kind of the classic textual press release. PR outfits often help in the assembly of testimonials, but not enough of them are doing video testimonials. PR firms often help in putting together your analyst deck, which becomes many, many decks. It becomes a sales deck, it becomes an executive deck, it becomes a presentation and corporate capabilities deck. Well, your deck is an SEO element and a sharing element on SlideShare, now owned by LinkedIn. Your deck, if you put a voiceover on it, is now a video. So consider rich media. Those kinds of things are very amenable to sharing, are very friendly for mobile devices, have a lot more credibility. A picture's worth 1,000 words. A talkie, moving picture might be worth 10,000 words, and might also rocket to the top of the search engines. In fact, a lot of people there, 39%, go to search engines to find online videos, and both Google and Bing oftentimes will bump a video properly SEO optimized up to the top of the listings, above people who've been working for years and spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on classic SEO. Sometimes a well-aimed video will shoot right to the top of that whole list of 10 people who've been competing for those listings for years. So consider rich media for your clients, and consider working with folks to get that media appropriately tagged.
Yeah, and another trend too that I've been seeing more recently is the rise of the infographic press release, which I think is a pretty creative way of distributing a press release, and it's a very visual, quick, short way, and I think if you can do it properly, you could get a pretty good win there too.
Well, we're seeing a lot with images, and especially on the consumer side. Those of you on Facebook and Pinterest, it's amazing how many slightly larger than thumbnail-sized graphics that just have a quote on it are shared like crazy. A pithy quote, a famous quote, something like that. Coming up with, what are the, we're seeing a little less of that in B2B. We're still seeing more of the long-form infographics, but we're starting to see more. So if you can find some good, some good quotes and then turn them into an image. Images are starting to get passed around a lot more, and properly done, if the actual image is hosted on your website, it can be a link magnet. Let's dive into just some really tactical things that you can do right away. And a lot of this stuff isn't rocket science, but it's stuff that you just kind of want to cover the bases and make sure that your in-house team or your agency is doing it. So we've got 5 things here. And it's all going to be focused in general around how do you actually optimize your press releases. So first, why do you care? Well, a properly done press release is, from a classic SEO perspective, kind of the Google dream. It's content you wrote or you controlled or you influenced strongly, sitting on somebody else's domain, linking back to you. Typically, if someone's linking to you, you haven't had a lot of influence or enough influence over how that content is structured. So a properly done press release, a guest blog post, or content that is submitted to a blogger who then uses it and wraps their commentary around your content, linking back to you is hugely powerful. So that's why you should look at PR optimization online on other people's sites. Also, if you get it, you can focus on SEOing that, and you can do paid media into that win. So getting more shelf space on Google in addition to having that win help you with your ranking. Journalists do use Google and Yahoo, especially Google and Yahoo News, that have combined more than 60 million uniques on the news sites for those two providers. Yahoo News is still bigger than Google News, by the way, to stay abreast of what's happening. And properly optimized press releases can often bump up to the top of the news search engines. It's fairly short-term bumping, but it can bump up to the top on the keywords you care about, and thus get the attention of a journalist who might be out there trolling on a topic you want to be found on or want a phone call for as they're writing an article. PR, again, is more credible than paid search or search engine marketing, so you can get those wins out there. It not only is it credible, properly done, it can be fairly cheap. You know, especially compared to paid media or, you know, heaven forbid, paying, you know, ad agencies rates to have little flashy, pretty things created. I mean, I love flashy, pretty things. Don't get me wrong. They can be horrendously expensive compared to somebody else kind of vouching for your content and extending it. So let's look at the 5 things of press release optimization, and we'll hit each and every one of these separately. The first is measure and track. If you're going to do if something's worth doing, it's probably worth measuring. So how do you track and measure this? Well, you can look at conversions on the website. You know, it could be media inquiries. You can look at traffic. You can use tools like the tools we use from my friend Rand Fishkin over at SEO Moz. He's got a great link tracking tool. You can see how many people are social bookmarking you. You can actually look at your rankings, both the pages that you're trying to rank and also the press releases as they go out and sit on other people's websites. See how well your efforts are getting included in the news feeds, and then, you know, actual pickups. And you know, historically, until recently, people really valued a print pickup, a traditional media pickup, much more highly than a pickup that was out there kind of on those interwebs. Now the internet pickups, I think the more savvy folks are saying, I'd almost prefer that because Google's going to see it as a credibility factor that's helping my SEO. Plus, if it's on the web and it's good, there's a whole other thing we could talk about with reputation management if it's bad, but if it's good, it's evergreen. It's not like it's yesterday's news. It'll keep and be fresh for a long time. We already talked about this a little bit, so I'm gonna beat this thing too a little bit more because it's important. Again, I think it's the single most important SEO element, because if you have your keywords wrong, you might as well just not be doing SEO. A bunch of keyword research tools out there. Sometimes it's useful to use a thesaurus to sort of stimulate the brain to think of other words that people might use to search for this. And in a lot of cases, people don't always search the way we want them to. We've got a vision that we've pitched to our financiers, our VCs, the industry analyst that is sort of sometimes 2 or 3 years ahead of the market in terms of where we're taking things. People rarely search on strategic words. They typically search on "ow, my head hurts," tactical pain words. What is the problem that right in front of their nose that they're having? And consider those as the keywords that we want to weave into the warp and woof of the overall PR content. And really try not to work more than several keywords per release. A lot of this is the standard kind of SEO advice of work 2 to 3 keywords per page, and then have, you know, several hundred words of content in the release. So when you're optimizing the content, think about multiple press releases. Short form for internet distribution. That's well suited for bloggers to pick up or write about it. You can also have a long form on your own web page. And the short form can say, hey, for more information, come to our web page. So you've got an opportunity to tell the longer story on your own web page. Long content's going to get lost in the weeds and probably not focus on your main talking points if you send too much content over the wire or hand carry it out to your key influencers with direct emails or you know, however you're distributing it. So short form for distribution. Think about long form for the website. Embed calls to actions. Remember, at the end of the day, there's still humans here, so don't get overly focused in writing for Google. And that's why a lot of times I really, you know, I look at my compatriots in the SEO industry, and they seem to forget that Google's 80% off page in links, and they spend a lot of time writing clunky, keyword-dense, you know, really hard to read content for search engines. Make sure that your content's for humans. Your 2 to 4 keywords, put it in the title, subtitle, several times in the release body. And then when you have links, have the click-through text of the link typically be a keyword, or the keyword at least close to the click-through text of the link, not your company name. You're going to rank for your company name anyway, I would hope. So focus on other keywords on the click-through links. If possible, use multiple media types. We talked about PowerPoints, rich media, voiceovers. And then remember kind of the heat maps where people start to read, kind of at the left and the top. And in a similar way, put your most important content up there, so it's going to be engaged with by the users. Now, if people come to your pages, the links, determine what are you trying to do. Are you trying to get a media inquiry? Are you actually trying to get a lead? Are you trying to get a video view? What is your conversion? Is it a download of a map? Where is it going to occur? Look at those destination pages, and if they're focused for PR, they're generally a little more content-rich than a traditional landing page. A lot of people call landing pages squeeze page or catcher pages. There are a lot of words that the industry uses out there for them. I prefer landing page just because squeeze page seems a little bit offensive to me in terms of what we're trying to do. So if you're doing classic paid search or email campaigns, you typically have thinner content and you're rapidly trying to get somebody to do something. From a PR perspective, they're a little bit higher funnel, a little bit like SEO. They're still a little bit more in the research phase, and then they want to learn a little bit more. So the pages that are optimized for online PR success typically have more content. The good news is the wire services are far more SEO savvy. Here's thing 5 than they used to be. They're still not savvy enough, and there's an over-reliance on hit our magic button on PR Newswire or BizWire, and like all kinds of automatic bread making happens, and the world is a wonderful place. And frankly, Google's pretty good at having an automated algorithm, but automated ways to spoof the automated algorithm generally, if it's important, you want a little bit of a manual oversight to that. There are a lot of good options out there. Sometimes I'm a fan of actually doing a couple release services. A real cheap one that's an internet one that's just internet savvy, has been around for a long time. They're PR Leap, PR Web, a bunch of those. I believe that Business Wire, their Eon service, is really just a white labeled version of Vocus, and Vocus has been around for a long time. That works fairly well. PR Newswire built their own. It's pretty good. But it's expensive. So depending on your budget, you might have, only 1 out of every 5 releases that goes to the traditional wire service. It's important to have a press release strategy. It forces content creation on an editorial calendar. But you may only want to have 1 out of 5 actually go out over the traditional wires. Maybe 4 out of 5 releases go out on an internet wire. Maybe a couple releases never go out on a wire at all. They're just on your web page and promoted through social media. So kind of think through your distribution strategy and consider using multiple ones out there. So let's talk about, my things disappeared. My 5 Dr. Seuss things. Hopefully you got your fill of them or more on the previous slides and are happy to see that they're no longer running around causing mayhem on the slides.
That one's my bad. I thought I'd replace all of the things.
It's that wonderful Mac to PC translation stuff. Anyway, so some basics of the direct media pitch haven't changed. I mean, it comes down to, do you have a story worth telling? Why are you telling the story? Why would someone care? But consider some custom pitches. One of the nice things about online is you do have an opportunity to group some folks once you know your influencers and know what persona types or know what they care about. You can customize a couple things at the top of the pitch, and you can customize the stuff at the bottom, and you could leave the middle of the pitch the same. So think about some different custom pitches. You can do internet-only distribution. I'm a big fan of that for a lot of your releases. And now with Twitter, Facebook, and if you've got some graphics, Pinterest, and SlideShare, you can do a lot of additional promotion around the releases. And sometimes you'll get actually more feedback from those, especially if you've rounded out your media and influencer list with their social media pins. You'll get more bang from that buck than you will through a traditional distribution service. Now, the traditional distro service will at least put your content out there on something that Google crawls and get into the Google thing. Okay, this is some people out there like a slide. Hopefully most people do. Thanks again for coming. I'm now going to turn it over to Aubrey, and we've got a few minutes here for Q&A if we have any questions.
So if any of you have any questions, feel free to type them in the little chat box. It's there. It's like a little blue chat bubble that pops up. Let me see here. I'm trying to see how it pops up for you all. Okay, so our first question is, let me see here. Can you tell me a little more about heat maps and what this does for our PR or SEO?
Well, as you're devising, well, two aspects to it. One, when you understand how a PR newswire or a business wire or any of the various places that, or even a Google News or Yahoo News, how they pick up releases and how they're displayed, that can change a little bit in terms of how you create releases, because the keywords that are most likely to draw people in, you want to be aligned toward the red spot of a heat map. So a heat map basically, in classic parlance, uses eye tracking technology to get a whole bunch of people into a laboratory. They track their eye movements and they show them a variety of screens. And they see, where do people focus? What do they look at first? What do they look at second? What do they look at third? And so it's very, very important from a conversion perspective to try to put the content you care most about where people are going to find it, and not in the dark spots where no one's actually ever looking. So when it comes to Google, for instance, heat map technology is part of what helped people figure out how many clicks and how many, what percent of the total searches are likely to come through listing number 1 versus listing number 3. And on your actual landing pages, on your conversion pages, the pages that you control on your website, you may want to put some conversion elements in the hotspots of where people are likely to look, and your actual content of the press release, you might want to put some of that in places that, draw their eyes over to the submit now, or a chance to $10 gift certificate at Starbucks if they take a demo call and they pass it from a sales rep, or a book offer or something like that. So it really is looking at the real estate you have on a screen and figuring out how to position your assets where the stuff you most care about getting found is most likely to be found.
Okay. The next question is, are the slides and audio cast going to be available afterwards? I would like to listen again. Yes, they will be. We are recording, and so we will send out the link to hear the audio recording, and it should have recorded all of the slides too.
I think we missed the first 3.
Yeah, I think we may have missed about the first 2 or 3 slides. Like we said, we're working with a new system, so we're still trying to work out the kinks, so sorry about that. And does anybody else have any other questions?
I would add, make sure that all of your marketing partners and vendors are talking to each other. PR well done is a huge asset for everything, but it also is a huge asset for pay-per-click and SEO. And specifically in the B2B world, it is important to have that credibility at every stage in the funnel. I remember back in the late 90s, one of the earliest SaaS companies out there, their entire homepage of their website was what other people were saying about them, and not what they were saying about themselves. And they rapidly cascaded to becoming the industry leader, and then they went public, and they've done phenomenally well ever since then. In today's age, a lot of those wins, it still makes sense to promote them on the website, but it makes even more sense to promote those wins in the place where they first occurred. And in theory, in their Gartner category, they could have 6 or 7 slots on Google where it's other people's websites saying good stuff about them, and then those sites are ranking both in paid and natural search. So the PR win often has a 3, 4, even 10x benefit if it's integrated with paid media online and other earned media online that bolsters that win and keeps it evergreen.
And thank you, George, for the link. Bill and I will definitely look at that later. For any of you interested, is clicktail.com. It's about heat maps.
Oh, Clicktail's great. Clicktail's a cheap, what I was describing was the academically cool way of doing heat maps, but it's pricey. In fact, most cities don't even have heat tracking machines. There's only one outfit. We're based in Austin, Texas. There's only one outfit, one usability lab in Austin that actually has eye tracking machines for generating the classic heat map, and it's not our shop. We actually refer some business to them for folks who've got good-sized budgets. Clicktail is a good way of getting kind of the 80-20 of heat maps. It's not looking at where people have where their eyes move. It's looking at what they actually click on the website, which is something of an analog for eye movements. There are a lot of other factors that go into that as well. And there are some other pieces of software that try to algorithmically estimate, based on data from previous eye tracking studies, what an eye tracking study would likely generate on your website. And there's several of those as well. So there's some good tools out there to kind of get the 80-20s of conversion tracking in a much more cost-effective manner. And yeah, Clicktail is a good one. We're fans of them. Thanks, George.
So yeah, if nobody has any other questions, guess we will go ahead and wrap this up. This particular webinar was taken from a chapter in Complete B2B Online Marketing. That chapter goes into some other little things too regarding PR. But though, if you're interested in the book, like I said, if you go to our website, you can actually find a link in our little carousel, or else if you go to our blog, we also have a link in there too for you to go and enter to win a copy of it. Also, I know that for those of you who registered before noon last Friday, you were automatically entered to win a copy of it too, and I will be getting out an email to y'all at the end of this week to tell you who won. And if not, feel free to go purchase it. I'm sure Bill would like the royalty check, and it's great.
A nickel a book?
A nickel a book,
I don't know.
like that. Yeah, my royalty check last month was $1 for my books. But at any rate, though, feel free to go buy it, and feel free. And if you do buy it, please write a review. That's a great PR win for us and helps us with our SEO. So, at any rate, thank you everybody for attending, and hope you all have a great afternoon. Bye. Apogee.